I asked them a simple question.
Yeah.
What comes to your mind when you think of the word future? Ideas like technology, sustainable cities, skyscrapers, flying taxis. But what is the future of theatre, public speaking and the arts?
But you start to look a little bit deeper, just 1 inch below the surface, and you realize that the thing that we're really missing in our lives is connection.
Whether it's theatre, public speaking or visual arts or music, I think it's so important to always have one of the arts in your life.
Like, I hope this generation can get that, because that, I think, is the scary part. You know how to tell your story in a way that people will listen. And that is a superpower. It's also a dangerous superpower.
Welcome to Beyond Tomorrow, Navigating Frontiers, the podcast where we explore different futures through the eyes of experts in various fields. I'm your host, Vrishank Sai Anand, and together we'll journey into the realms of innovation, foresight and visionary thinking, uncovering how today's pioneers are actively shaping the world of tomorrow. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Malavika Varadan, or as I affectionately call her, Malu. She's a TEDx speaker, an expert in public speaking and drama, and most importantly, a teacher. On a more personal level, she loves a good sourdough bread, she loves multiple copies of her favorite book, and she finds herself recommending books to strangers who just stop to say hello. Malu's journey is truly fascinating. From being a graduate to becoming a radio personality to running a successful school for theatre and public speaking. I remember hearing her every day on Radio City 1016 as a kid and feeling so proud that my drama teacher was live on air. Over the past 8 years, I've grown as a Hive student, and Malu has become like a second mother to me. It's incredible to have her on the podcast today. Fun fact, Malu has an amazing podcast of her own, so be sure to check that out as well. So today, we'll be delving into her experiences and insights on how the arts, particularly theatre and public speaking, are evolving and shaping the future. So welcome to the podcast, Malu.
Wow, that was so good, Vrishank. Can I just say my Vrishank?
Thank you so much. It's amazing to have you here.
It's amazing to be on your podcast, and I'm so proud of you and how articulate you are, but also how gutsy you are, and how you've kind of gone ahead and taken an idea and actually made something of it. Not a lot of people have that ability, but you do.
Thank you so much. So let's get into it.
Sure.
So I wanted to bring this idea up front. I have a futures club in my school where we explore different topics, and recently I did an activity with them. I asked them a simple question. What comes to your mind when you think of the word futures? And different ideas came across the room. Ideas like technology, sustainable cities, skyscrapers, flying taxis. But I was pretty surprised to see no mentions of the arts, of theatre, drama, and particularly public speaking as well. So I'd like to ask you this question. In your view, what is the future of theatre, public speaking and the arts?
So it's like you just said, right? When we're talking about the future, we're talking about robotics and artificial intelligence and skyscrapers and all of that. But it doesn't take a lot. If you just look at our lives and our cities. Our city, for example, Dubai, is a very future-looking city, right? Yeah. But you start to look a little bit deeper, just 1 inch below the surface, and you realize that the thing that we're really missing in our lives is connection. Right? So you have all these people who are making all this money, who can buy these really fancy cars and like great apartments, but do they have love to put in those homes? Do they have what it takes to make a house a home, to be able to make a conversation or have a friend or talk about the things that matter? When COVID happened, Vrishank, it's like the world, all those skyscrapers meant nothing because you couldn't drive to work, right? And what did we turn to as a community? We turned to the arts. We put on music. We watched plays, we read, we told stories, and that was the stuff that really saved humanity. So I think if we're looking at a future, without accounting for the social intelligence and the creative intelligence that we need to build into our kids, we're making a big mistake, because those skyscrapers are eventually going to be building themselves, right? Robots are going to be doing the rest of that stuff. What they can't do is hold someone's hand and figure out when someone's having a bad day and like comfort you and understand you in a way that another human being would. And that's what drama does, really. It teaches you the language of being a human being in the world.
Let me shift the focus to our young minds, the youth. How can theatre and the arts, as you mentioned, play an important role in shaping them into meaningful people in the future?
Such a good question. So there's a little poster at the Hive that's right opposite my table that says that before the technology took us to the moon, the arts did, a story did, right? So if you want to be able to imagine a future for yourself, sometimes it doesn't have to be just future inventions and presidents and people building countries and companies. No, even sometimes as a human being, I need to be able to imagine a future that is not my current reality. I need to be able to imagine that I can live in a peaceful family if today's family doesn't feel that way, or I can have a home where my dreams can come true. So being able to create that imagination is a work of art, right? You need to first be able to build a narrative. You need to be able to tell a story. You need to be able to understand a story. And the reason that we read and the reason that we tell stories and the reason that we do theatre is not because it's important for us to tell that story, whether that's Cinderella or Evan Hansen, right? It's because those stories give us the language to shape our own stories and our own narratives. So that as you're growing up, Vrishank is building the story of who Vrishank is going to be and what are the turning points of his story and where the chapters break and end. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think the amazing thing about theatre is that, it's when at face value it's words and emotion, but in reality it has so much depth underneath and can convey so much.
Yeah.
And apart from the present, it also tells you a lot about the future and how we're evolving as humans as well and how our emotions are evolving.
So true.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask you this question. In the next 20 to 30 years, how do you see the evolution of theatre, public speaking and the arts?
So I think that in terms of theatre, in terms of live performances, they're going to become more and more important. There's a lot of our content that's currently being consumed digitally, right? We're watching, 1 minute reels and 60-second content and stuff like that. But I think there is a magic in live performance that we will soon realize when we've had our stomachs full with 1 minute content, that there is a hunger that is just not being satisfied. And that hunger will only be satisfied when you and I are in the same room together watching something. Funny that I actually saw this on a reel, but I saw a reel the other day that spoke about this term of collective effervescence. And collective effervescence is the feeling of when a group of people come together and they do something together. Now, it may be a kirtan, it may be a prayer, it may be a rock concert, it may be doing a choreography in a play, it may be all of us shouting a word or a phrase together or being in a football match, but that feeling when 100 people, 200 people, 500 people, even 10 people together do a thing in unison and you get that vibe, that is a feeling of collective effervescence.
Yeah.
And no amount of liking some post 9 million times is going to give you that joy,
Yeah, I actually remember as a kid when I was around 8 or 9 years old, I think, somewhere around that age, I came to a Hive play.
Yeah.
It was actually, I think, Helen Keller.
Yeah.
And the audience was, I was a kid, I didn't understand much at that time of what the play was really about. But seeing the emotions, it just inspired me to take on theatre and it allowed me to understand how powerful theatre really is. So, what would you personally, are there any specific techniques or production techniques that can be used to convey the meaning of a play or a meaning of something further?
I think what's really important is that kids, adults, parents, teachers, educators especially, kind of dial it down a little bit. I think sometimes we take technology a little bit too far. There is a great magic in me taking this pencil from your hand and saying, it is now a sword. And you will believe it's a sword, right? So sometimes actually we don't need technology. I'm not a big fan of smart boards. As you can tell at the Hive, we don't have a single one, right? So I feel like sometimes it's okay to not have this. It's okay to not have the technology. Let's just dial it down a little bit. Let's just do with less. Sometimes less is a lot more. Is a lot more. So yeah, that's my advice to anybody trying to put up a play.
So from being a graduate to a radio personality to actually successfully running your own institution, what was behind the scenes? What was the journey?
The journey is a long and complicated one, Vrishank, but I'll tell you this. I've noticed this in my life, that things always come back full circle. So when I was growing up, so my dad was a publisher, so I grew up around books, right? And I grew up around bookshelves. And I didn't actually go out and play a lot. I was one of those kids who just sat in the evening and read my books until the next day, because every week I would get a new stack of books from my dad's office. So I had an unlimited access to fiction. And you see, like, somehow it's managed to find its way back into my life, because now at every Hive there's a bookshelf that's teeming over. The second thing was, like, as I went through graduation, I was doing theatre alongside economics, and I thought that I wanted to become an economist, and I wanted to join the IMF, and I wanted to do developmental economics. I was a complete, and still am a complete, maths and stats nerd. I love graphs and numbers. I love it. And I applied to an MBA school, but I didn't get in. And it was the only school I applied to because I was so sure they would take me on. But I didn't get in. So then, in kind of like, I was so mad, I was like, I'm going to break up with economics before economics breaks up with me. And so I decided that instead I would do radio. And so I started doing radio. But look at this, right? All these years later, all these little things have played a part in building the Hive. So the books play a part, all the economics that I learned, and all those numbers and graphs and, you know, gross and net and all that now plays a part when I'm looking at our P&L statements. And of course, the radio plays an enormous part in what I do, because I think that a teacher is fundamentally an entertainer, because you're standing in front of a classroom and you're engaging for 1 hour, and you can't let those kids take their eyes off you. So it kind of all came back finally to the Hive. And there was just a point in my life where I felt like I had done enough of radio. And to be honest, I think your classroom, the kids that I see on a Saturday morning, are far more exciting than Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan combined. And Shah Rukh is a pretty great guy. So yeah, I think you all are way more exciting. Education as an industry, as a space to be in, the job that we do, the impact that we have is like so much more fulfilling. I guess the difference between radio and teaching is a little bit like the difference between fireworks and gardening. Fireworks is like, now it's big energy, it lights up the sky, everybody's looking at it, it looks so great, and it's over, and people go back to their phones and they're on with their lives, right? You're not going to remember it. Yeah. But gardening is like, it will take years before this tree blossoms, but that tree will remember the gardener. Like, it's impact that is long lasting, and children will sit under the shade of the tree that we plant today. So it's a long run game, right? And that's the thing I enjoy the most.
I think it's so amazing to see that theatre, whether it's theatre or even public speaking, it can, you know, open up a whole personality. It can open someone who doesn't like to talk much to people to, you know, want to get people around them to talk. You know, it makes you someone who's social, but even if you're not social, it teaches you so much. It allows you to be more creative, and that's what I feel I've learned along the way through the Hive.
I'm so proud of you, Vrishank. Look at you. I'm just so proud of you. Anyway, sorry. Keep talking.
So what I wanted to ask was, how does this actually influence youth in encouraging them to explore arts, you know, as a career?
So arts as a career is, I think, is sometimes a reductive way of thinking about an arts education. Okay, I always say this, that an arts education is not only to build artists. Yes, of course, it would be great if we have 1,000 students at the Hive today, and will all of them become, you know, I don't know, Tom Cruise or Katrina Kaif or whatever the equivalent is. I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe 1 will, maybe 5 will, 10 will. But that's not the aim of it, right? The aim of an arts education is to build more empathetic leaders. Because what it does, like you said, right, it gives you the guts to be able to sit around a table and hear different opinions. What do we do in a public speaking class at the Hive? Like, what do we do when we're in your classroom? We throw a topic to the center of the table and we see the number of perspectives it brings up. And by doing that, hour after hour, day after day, week after week, over years, what it trains young minds to do is to take a subject, and maybe today we're doing whatever debate topics we're doing in class, but tomorrow it could be, how can I run my company better? Or how can we impact the world? Or how can we build a product that's going to change lives? And when you throw that topic to the middle of the table, to be able to navigate all that comes off that topic, that's the education that I'm interested in, right? And for example, theatre, it teaches you a billion things. It teaches you human emotions. It teaches you that, you know, it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like the fundamental learning of drama. And tell me one president or prime minister or politician or venture capitalist who doesn't need to understand that, or leader in any way. When you lead a team, you need to understand that it's not just what you're saying, but it's also how you're saying it that is impacting the energy in the room. So that is drama, right? And that is storytelling. You think about going to a Shark Tank and making a pitch and trying to get, by the way, Vrishank often jokes that he's the CFO of the Hive. So, I mean, he is technically, because we don't have a CFO. But if you were in Shark Tank and going and pitching an idea to get funding, what are you doing? You're telling a story.
Yeah.
Right? And if we have trained you to tell a great story from the day you were 4 years old, I reckon that when you're 40 and you're walking into that room and asking for 10 million dirhams, you know how to tell that story. You know how to tell your story in a way that people will listen. And that is a superpower. It's also a dangerous superpower, because in the hands of the wrong person, that could turn into a dictator. But that's what I'm very proud of at the Hive. I think we're building the skill, but we're also building the heart to carry that skill through the world.
Yeah, I think theatre allows you, first of all, theatre has this big impact of boosting someone's confidence. But at the same time, I believe that theatre brings out who someone truly is under them, right?
Yeah.
Like what you truly have under you. I mean, I never would have discovered my passion for public speaking if it weren't from going to theatre and then sort of becoming, like, speaking a lot more. And then, I mean, after, like, in grade 5, after, like, 3-4 years, I discovered that I think another art would be good as well. So that brings me to my question. What other art forms can really help empower youth and give them self-confidence and a voice to show the world?
Any art form is of value. Music teaches you focus, it teaches you alignment, it teaches you collaboration. You as a guitarist, you'll only go so far, but like recently we were working with the Firdaus Orchestra and we saw 40, 50 women in a room together playing the same song, and you'll see the magic that creates, right? So music teaches you that. It teaches you the power of collaboration. It teaches you the power of focus. The fact is that you are going to take hours on end to learn how to play a song. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, look at Bharatnatyam, for example, right, as a dance form. I'm so intrigued by the fact that your Arangetram, which is like your first public performance, happens after years of training. Right? It's not an instant gratification, let's do 3 classes and then you do a show and then, it's a quick turnaround. You can spend years just perfecting the arch of your foot on the ground. I mean, that is amazing. Or dance as an art form teaches you how to use your body to express yourself, which is something that is so, you see it, right? You look around a classroom of kids nowadays and like, you can just tell by their postures that they have so much of their emotion just tied into their shoulders and their guts and their back and their spine. And so every art form in a way, or visual art, for example, it teaches you how to see beauty in the world. Sometimes you can see a logo, you can see a painting and it says more than any essay, right? But every art form is teaching you fundamentally the same thing, that all of us human beings across countries, cultures, creeds, gender, fundamentally we're trying to tell stories. And our stories are all down to certain emotions, and those certain emotions can be expressed in billions of ways. But that's just it. It's like 7 notes that it takes to build any symphony in the world, right? So take your art form and boil it down to its core basics. It's all trying to tell you to do the same thing. Tell a good story.
Wow, that honestly brought a lot of information to me, and I mean, now I can really understand how all the arts equally have something amazing in them and have a specific focus.
Yeah.
So in your experience of personally running a theatre institute and a public speaking institute, what do you believe, what do you believe is the biggest positive impact that you've created in your students, and what potentially may threaten their ability to perform in the future? Or do you believe that's...
Yeah, man, that's a tough one. That's actually a heartbreaking question. I think not just me, but I think every single teacher who has ever taught in the rooms of the Hive has had an impact on their kids. Because I think sometimes for some kids, right, we're the first adult that they can meet honestly. where it's like a little different, right? When you meet like a school teacher, you have a school teacher relationship, and then when you meet a parent, they're a parent. But when you meet a drama teacher, we're kind of these weird creatures who don't fit into anything. So we're these ambiguous kind of forces that just hover around your existence. And sometimes I've noticed, like, we're the first people who you will have an argument with, or we encourage you to disagree with us. And I think that's like really important. So we're teaching kids that it's okay to question authority. It's okay for you to say that you don't agree. It's okay for you to challenge what we're proposing. So I think that's a big one. Two, I think I think we're able to hear kids. We're able to see them and hear them in a way that they don't feel seen and heard in other places, just because of the kind of work that we do. It's like we allow them at a very crucial stage in their life to try on different costumes, and these costumes are personalities, right? Like you're 9 and you think I'm a class clown, and then you'll come and try a drama piece where you're trying that out, and you're like, actually no, humor's not my thing, maybe I want to try a little bit more of this. So it's like almost as if every week you're coming in to do drama, but really you're just trying on personalities. It's like it's like a costume closet. And then finally your own style is built from a range of these personalities you've experimented with. But the thing that I really feel, and it keeps me up every night, is that I feel that in this world which is becoming increasingly anxious and increasingly unsafe, and I feel like kids are carrying around so much of anxiety that is tied into their screens and into pressure and into what they need to be, and like I'm so scared that when we throw these seeds to the wind, that they should not get blown away by all of these things, right? And I'm really scared of screens. I'm scared of what they're doing to our kids. I'm scared that our kids are lonely. I'm scared that our kids are pressured too much. I'm scared that they feel that they need to look a certain way and be a certain way. I don't think it's healthy that they have a mirror in their face all the time, that they're constantly performing for an imaginary social media crowd. All this stuff like really keeps me up. I think this is the stuff that's going to break their confidence. So we got to build them strong from the word go.
I think that's why it's so important to always have an art in mind, right? Whether it's theater, public speaking, or visual arts or music.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to always have one of the arts in your life, so that, whenever you're pretty stressed about something, whenever you can't think properly, you always have that art to go back to, and to sort of like, if I'm really stressed about my exams, I can probably take 10 minutes off the day and just go back, play some music, or just go back. I think like theater in this case, it allows you to be someone else, right? And be someone else with a mixture of yourself. So it's so nice to sort of experiment that, and that's what I've learned in my years at the Hive. So this brings me to my final question. So considering the rapid pace of our world and the rapid change in our world, what advice would you personally give to young people interested in pursuing theatre or public speaking as a career in the future? Even if they really don't look at pursuing it, anyone who wants to take up an art or theatre, anything.
I think take up an art and always have an art in your life, whether or not you're going to pursue it as a career. I'm someone who didn't really pursue acting as a career, but I think improv and acting is actually what radio really is. So a large part of my career, most of what I've spent my life doing has been public speaking. I think it's important to be able to draw the line and have a very, very strong sense of self if you're going into this field, right? Like I always feel like I have a few kids now who have gone and enrolled into acting schools, and they're doing graduate programs in acting and stuff, and I'm so scared because I feel like, when you are an actor, you are the product, right? So it's like, for example, tomorrow if I made a laptop and the laptop doesn't do very well, it's the laptop's problem. Like there's a fundamental problem with the way in which we engineered that product. But as an actor, you are the product. So when you go out there and you make a piece of art and you read a piece of poetry to a room of people and they say that's rubbish, it's impossible to not feel gutted, right? So it's like, it takes so much out of you to be an artist in this world, because every time I do a show now at the Hive, there's not a day when I don't sit in the back row and bite my nails off and have my stomach in a twist, and I've got paralyzing anxiety for the time that we do that Hive Theatre Festival, because every show is like, I hope it lands, oh come on God, please let it land. So much of you is invested in it, So if you don't have a super strong sense of self, it can really like be, you know, very hard on you, I think. So I guess my advice would be to really build your core. Really build your core. Like, who are you? What do you believe in? What matters? And also be okay with disconnecting. I think that's a very important thing as well as an actor or as a person in the performing arts, because you're out there so much that when you stop, when the light goes off, when the stage lights go off, you got to find a very quiet place you can retreat to. Like, and you have to be okay with being alone, being yourself, just sitting quietly, not doing anything, staring at a wall, not having any inputs. Like, I hope this generation can get that, because that, I think, is the scary part. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Malu, for coming over for the podcast.
No, thank you, Vrishank. And can I just say that I am so proud of you every step of the way.
Thank you so much. I'm sure the listeners would have had a great time, and this was a truly enlightening and inspiring conversation to have.
Thank you, Vrishank.
To our listeners, stay tuned for more inspiring conversations on Beyond Tomorrow, Navigating Frontiers. Until next time, keep exploring the possibilities of tomorrow and pushing the boundaries of today. I'm Vrishank Sai Anand.